Thank you. On behalf of the members of the legislature, I'd like to welcome our guests, the Lieutenant Governor and the members of the Florida Cabinet, and the justices of the Florida Supreme Court. Welcome to the joint session. As is customary on this occasion, it is my honor to present the gavel to the President of the Senate with the request that he preside over these proceedings.
So that's what this feels like, huh? Yeah, these are not all Somali warlords I'm looking at here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members this year, the joint session encompasses members seated in both the House and the Senate chambers. The chair declares a quorum present. The members and visitors will please rise for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and the singing of the national anthem. Today, the prayer will be offered by former representative of the House, Commissioner Mel Ponder. Commissioner Ponder, please approach the well.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you'll join me again in prayer. Good morning, Lord. Thank you for your goodness and mercy. Today we seek first your kingdom and your presence, knowing as Moses declared, if your presence does not go with us, we don't want to go. Father, it's been a tough and challenging year, an unprecedented pandemic. Many have suffered, lives lost, families impacted, even some within this chamber. We thank you for the tremendous strides taken, but also know the journey ahead requires wisdom and hope. Be with those on the front lines, our first responders, those called into harm's way. Yet today, may we take confidence knowing all things work together for good, that at the very moment I call to you for a father's help, the tide of the battle turns and my enemies flee. This one thing I know, God is on my side. And if God is for us, who can be against us? So Father, we pull on the windows of heaven this morning, contending for blueprints, righteousness at our gates. Challenge us daily to be close to you as we lead this great state. Desire the plans you have to prosper us, not to harm us, to give us a future and a hope. To let our light so shine before others, so others see you and glorify your name. To be prepared as Joseph was, that when called upon, heard your voice and had a word in season that changed the world and saved a generation. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks today for our state's leadership. Equip and empower them. May they know your voice and be led by your ways. May they continue to shine bright in this session. For Governor DeSantis, our First Lady, Cabinet, our Supreme Court, President Simpson, Speaker Sprowls, both chambers, their aides and staff, a legislative family full of world changers. And whether it's the end of session or looking back later in life, may we have the confidence knowing that we fought the good fight, we finished the race, and we kept the faith. Remind us, Lord, that though our opinions may differ, to always celebrate each other, pray for one another, honor one another. Lord, your Spirit is upon them because you have anointed them to proclaim the good news. We love you, Lord. May your kingdom come. May you crown the year with your goodness. Break our heart, Lord, for what breaks yours. Lead us in paths of righteousness. Set us ablaze with your presence. Inspire us to contend for the supernatural, to unite in purpose, and be bold to pursue your promises. For truly, you are amazing, God. Finally, O Lord, bless us indeed. Expand our territory. May your hand be with us and keep us from evil, that we will not cause pain or do evil. We love you, Lord, and you love this body, so bless them good. We pray all this in your holy name. And everybody said, amen.
Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led today by House Speaker Tempore Brian Avila.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here at my invitation to sing the national anthem is Florida artist, Hall of Fame inductee Billy Dean, who hails from Quincy, Florida. Mr. Dean, please approach the well.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, it gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? All right.
You may be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce two special guests who have joined us for this occasion. Speaker Sproul's wife, the First Lady of the Florida House, Shannon Sprouse. And my wife, Kathy Simpson, the First Lady of the Florida Senate. Is the governor? We're ready. For what purpose? Do you rise? The joint session, oh no, I'm sorry, we're not going to stand up for me. The governor's here. Sergeant Hosford is recognized.
Mr. President, the Governor of Florida.
Yes, sir.
Also joining us in the East Gallery is the governor's wife, First Lady Casey DeSantis. Members of the legislature, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce you to Governor Ron DeSantis, the governor of the state of Florida.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of the House and Senate, Supreme Court justices, and fellow citizens. I see in many parts of our country a sad state of affairs. Schools closed, businesses shuttered, and millions of lives destroyed. This calamitous reality is just the beginning of what will likely be long-term damage to children, to families, and to society. Sow the wind, and you reap the whirlwind. While so many other states kept locking people down over these many months, Florida lifted people up. Florida schools are open, and we are one of only a handful of states in which every parent has the right to send their child to school in person. All Floridians have a right to earn a living, and our citizens are employed at higher rates than those in the nation as a whole. Every job is essential. If you're working hard to earn a living, we've got your back in the state of Florida. Every business in Florida has a right to operate. Over these many months, we've stood up for small family-owned businesses and have saved thousands of them from ruin. And because of our actions, Florida is now leading the nation in the number of people submitting business formation applications. We're one of the top destinations for business relocation. Friends, legislators, and Floridians, lend me your ears. We will not let anybody close your schools. We will not let anybody close your businesses, and we will not let anybody take your jobs. Now, 1 year ago, COVID-19 had not yet been declared a global pandemic. We had scant knowledge of the virus, little ability to test for it, and no approved treatments. Today, we have 3 safe and effective vaccines, great treatments like monoclonal antibodies, and the ability to conduct rapid diagnostic tests. Now, a lot has happened over the past year. We are saddened by the thousands of Floridians and hundreds of thousands of Americans who have died with COVID. And we sympathize with the family members who, in many instances, were not even permitted to see their loved ones in person, either in the hospital or in a nursing home. So to honor those who have died with COVID and to recognize the toll the virus has taken on family members throughout our state, the state of Florida will be lowering the flags to half-staff on Wednesday, tomorrow. We thank the healthcare professionals throughout Florida who cared for those who became ill due to COVID. This includes frontline doctors and nurses who provided top-notch care to hospitalized patients, as well as staff at long-term care facilities who work tirelessly day after day to protect our most vulnerable seniors. Their efforts help save thousands of lives and are a major reason why Florida, with perhaps the most vulnerable population to COVID, has per capita COVID mortality that is below the national average. Thank you for your hard work and what you've done to save lives. Now, from the outset, Florida's been steadfast in focusing efforts on the protection of our elderly population. We rejected the policy of sending contagious COVID patients back into nursing homes. Indeed, we prohibited the practice. Florida also established COVID-only nursing facilities so that infections in long-term care facilities could be more effectively contained. And perhaps most importantly, we are prioritizing our senior citizens for vaccinations. Florida's putting seniors first because it's the best strategy to save lives and is the best way to honor our elders from whom we draw inspiration. We vaccinated millions of seniors throughout Florida, our parents, our grandparents, World War II veterans, Holocaust survivors, and everything in between. We've made vaccinations available all across our state in retail pharmacies, including Publix, Walmart, and CVS, at hundreds of hospitals throughout Florida, at drive-through sites in places like the Villages Retirement Community, at houses of worship, from the First Baptist Church Piney Grove in Lauderdale Lakes to the St. Paul AME in Jacksonville, at senior communities such as Century Village in Kings Point in South Florida, and in underserved areas such as Pahokee. We even have delivered thousands of shots to homebound seniors in the comfort of their own home. Our efforts have saved lives. In fact, 40 states have suffered higher COVID mortality for seniors age 65 and up on a per capita basis than the state of Florida has. And the cases and hospitalizations for seniors in Florida have plummeted as vaccinations have increased. Since January 30th, the number of seniors hospitalized for COVID has declined by 80%, and cases among seniors have declined by 71%. Florida was right to prioritize the elderly. Seniors First works. As we work to protect our seniors, we also work to give opportunities to our kids. Florida's led the way in providing all parents the right to send their kids to school for in-person instruction. Florida is one of only 4 states in the country and the only large state to offer in-person instruction to 100% of its students. Across the nation, millions of students have been locked out of the classroom for nearly a year, and for many, there's no end in sight. These students have fallen behind on academics, have been denied the opportunity to participate in activities such as athletics, and have seen their social development stunted. The consequences of shutting kids out of school for a year and a half, and heck, in some places, it will likely be 2 years. Those consequences will be catastrophic and long-lasting. The failure of so many places outside of Florida to open schools at the beginning of the school year will go down as one of the biggest policy blunders of our time. Florida didn't make that mistake, though. We followed the data and stood by our parents and our students. We ignored the political posturing and fear-mongering, and we did what was right for Floridians. And Florida has succeeded where so many other states have failed in providing opportunities for our students, in large measure because of the tireless efforts of school superintendents, administrators, teachers, and coaches. They knew that keeping kids out of school forever would be a disaster, and they weren't going to let that happen on their watch. So on behalf of a grateful state and millions of grateful parents, I thank you for your efforts. Given the unique circumstances you faced, you may never have an opportunity to play such a crucial role, not only in ensuring opportunities for students, but also preventing long-term damage to our society. Job well done. Now, open schools have been a godsend to parents throughout Florida, especially our single moms who are responsible for putting food on the table. Economic lockdowns are a luxury of the largely affluent Zoom class. Many Floridians can't do their jobs over a computer. They need to show up. And over the past many months, Florida has led the way in protecting the jobs and the livelihoods of its hardworking citizens. From construction workers to bartenders, from servers to hairstylists, everyone in this state has a right to earn a living. And Florida's efforts have made a lasting impact on the lives of millions of people. But don't just take it from me. Let them tell you for themselves.
I'm Ralph Lewis, third-generation co-owner, Okeechobee Steakhouse.
My name is Norma Romero. I'm 99 years old. I'm the waiter, 100.
Hello, my name is Juan Victor Gonzalez. I'm 11 years old.
My name is Nadia Winston, and I'm principal here at Central Avenue Elementary School. I am Danielle Gonzalez.
I am Christine Wainwright.
Peter Boulware.
My name is Teresa Hodgson.
My name's Grant Thompson.
Antonia Fiordolino.
Jennifer Melku.
Hi, my name is Dr. Elwood R. Scott II. I'm a dentist here at Mayhem Village Dental.
My name is Julie Saban. I live in Boca Raton, Florida.
My name is Trey Wainwright, and I play football at Niceville High School.
We stopped actually living as we know life. To see everything kind of crumbling, it was kind of tough.
I had to lay off everyone.
I did not want to be on the streets, wondering where the next meal was coming from.
They had a lot of issues connecting.
Kids are struggling academically and socially.
They cried. They couldn't embrace their friends. It was heartbreaking.
At 98, this is it? No family? No anything? She didn't have that will to live anymore?
But they're like, I don't want to die just stuck in my house, not seeing anybody. I want to live life.
My mother turned 98 on Christmas Day. She lives in Clifford Chester Sims Nursing Home, allowing us to go in and interact with our parents and with our loved ones. I think it saved her life.
Florida has decided to vaccinate the seniors in the state. Makes the most sense. The seniors are the most vulnerable population.
Well, we thank the governor for that, because a lot of people don't fight for the seniors.
In fact, in some states it was actually 75 and over, so it was great in Florida that was 65 and over.
Seniors first, I absolutely agree with that.
My brother lives a few miles from here, and we haven't seen him at all. We used to go out for dinner with them all the time. We haven't seen them once. They just recently were vaccinated also. We'll be able to see them again.
The other states, I felt like they just thought the elderly was more like collateral damage.
My family, we wanted to be a lead in getting it, whether it was in the office, whether it was in the church, etc., so we could tell others about our experience, but we can also be an example for others.
Now I feel like we're really on the path to a much more normal life than we've had in the last year.
I do appreciate letting us parents decide what we want to do with our kids' education.
Having them return was just we were just excited because we had missed them so much. So we needed that interaction as much as they did.
School is that escape for a lot of our kids too, getting away from home and whatever chaos they're dealing with.
Academically and emotionally, they feel more at ease.
They need that person-to-person contact.
The interaction with teachers, like if we have a question, they can be right there on their way to help us. So that really boosted probably all of our grades up.
I love physical school. It is way better than online, 100% better.
If I didn't have football this year, I don't know what I'd be doing, but we actually get to have a full, somewhat regular season while other states aren't getting to do anything at all.
From a parent's perspective, you know, sports are very important to our family, to my children.
Thank you for bringing us back and allowing us to come back. I know a lot of my friends that are in different states that are, you know, 50-50 even. Their kids are struggling so much academically and socially.
I just felt so incredibly happy that we were going to get the chance to continue to compete, because I couldn't imagine life without doing that, without school and sports and team and community.
Thank God, though, we were able to make it through it. We had a governor that is business friendly and understands how important commerce is to keep people working.
It's been my whole life, 35 years. I know it's not much just big business, but for small business, it's everything.
Now that we open at 100%, everyone's working full-time, and we're hiring people.
Oh, back in action. 100% back in action. I was never so excited to be able to come in and put my vest and tie on. That's for sure. I was ready for it.
It's wonderful to see people laughing and eating and living their life, and that's living my life. That's living.
We've been able to pay our bills. We've been able to live.
It's great to be able to know to wake up in the morning, I'm going to work, I'm going to have a great day.
To hear the other stories that are happening out west or in other states where it's not so friendly, we've got a group that's fighting to get us back on our feet.
We have had staff we have hired over the past year that have moved here from other states. One I can think of moved here from California. She said they're devastated there, no work. She was so thankful for a job and could not believe how different Florida was. In her own words, it was like living in a different country.
Thank you for making the choices and trusting us that we are educated men and women, that we do live in the greatest nation on the planet.
I knew my government was fighting to get it back open as soon as possible.
We'll be able to go out more and just enjoy life in general, instead of staying home and thinking about what we used to do.
We are so blessed to, do sports and go to school and have that opportunity.
Safety first, seniors first.
When I read the paper and see what's going on up north, we can be thankful we're down here.
I'm just glad we're Floridians.
Our governor has made the right decision for our children and for our churches and for our businesses. And that's why people are moving to Florida.
So Florida's right to put seniors first. We're right to have kids in school, and we're right to have saved the economy. And you don't even have to look at the statistics, just look how people vote with their feet. There aren't a whole lot of Floridians who are itching to move from Florida to lockdown states, but there are thousands and thousands of people who are seeking to leave the lockdowns behind for the greener pastures here in the state of Florida. And we've long been known as the Sunshine State, but given the unprecedented lockdowns we've witnessed in other states, I think the Florida sun now serves as a beacon of light to those who yearn to live in freedom. Now, as we begin this legislative session, I look forward to working with the two gentlemen up here, Senate President Wilton Simpson and House Speaker Chris Sprowls. They've already demonstrated leadership on issues that matter to Floridians, and I know you guys will be great partners for progress. And being from Pasco and Pinellas, and me being a Pinellas County kid growing up, I mean, I think the Tampa Bay area should be well represented in this next go-round. Now, when the initial fallout from COVID began, there was a lot of concern about whether we could afford to continue with the progress we had already made on our priorities like protecting our water resources and K-12 education. The forecasts were dire. The 2021 legislative session was shaping up to be a fiscal nightmare. Well, I'm pleased to report that our current fiscal outlook is much better than the bleak forecast from last spring. Now, as many of you know, when the pandemic hit, I vetoed $1 billion out of this current year's budget. I also instructed our executive agencies not to spend 100% of the appropriated funds because we didn't know for sure how much revenue we'd be taking in. However, because Florida's economy is open, revenue is coming in at levels far higher than even the most recently revised estimates. For the last 3 months, December, January, February, preliminary estimates peg the increase in revenue at more than $800 million over and above the December revenue estimation. Florida is also below the national average in unemployment and much lower than our peer states of Texas, New York, and California. We also anticipate downward revisions of December's unemployment numbers to reflect even stronger job growth. And as international travel is reinstated and tourism picks up, and I hope the federal government will allow our cruise ships to sail again, they're ready, the employment outlook in Florida should improve even more. And throughout this entire pandemic, Florida has not touched 1 red cent from our rainy day fund. So the bottom line is this. By saving Florida's economy, our budget outlook is much more positive. The priorities we've championed, from water resources to education to infrastructure, can still be honored. So let's get it done. I just want to make it very clear, I reject reductions in funding for K-12 education. Last session, the legislature answered my call to increase the average minimum salary for teachers, taking Florida from the bottom half of states to the top 5. I think we should keep that momentum going. We can do even more this year. We also shouldn't forget that Florida continues to make great strides in K-12 education. Just last week, the College Board released data showing Florida ranks #2 in the nation in the percentage of graduating seniors who have passed advanced placement exams. Florida, of course, leads the nation in school choice. And of course, we're beginning to place a strong and long overdue emphasis on vocational and technical education. Florida has also launched an ambitious civics initiative so that students can understand the principles that make our country unique. Florida is leading on education, and we must continue to do so. We must also continue to protect our natural resources and invest in improvements in water quality. I ask that you continue to fund the key projects, such as the EAA Reservoir in the south, as well as projects in the northern Everglades that will impact our state for generations to come, that also reaffirm our commitment to to Everglades restoration and access to safe, clean water for our communities. I'm also proposing the creation of the Resilient Florida program under the Department of Environmental Protection. Through this initiative, Florida will invest $1 billion into projects that will help our communities adapt to the threats posed by flooding from intensified storms and from sea level rise. And I'm encouraged by the similar proposals from the legislature to address this important issue for our communities, and I look forward to signing into law a program that will make a real difference. Florida is and must remain a state dedicated to law and order. When riots broke out across the nation last year, we saw cities ruined by violent mobs. Law enforcement was targeted and lawlessness prevailed. This was not and must never be tolerated in the state of Florida. Now, as we saw rioting in other states last year, I called up the National Guard, mobilized mobile field force teams from the Florida Highway Patrol, and worked with local officials like Jimenez and Curry to ensure that places like Miami and Jacksonville didn't suffer the same fate as Minneapolis and Kenosha. So Florida handled it, but we need to do more. Working with the president and the speaker, as well as law enforcement groups across the state, we have proposed the strongest anti-rioting, pro-law enforcement reforms in the nation. We will not permit localities to jeopardize the safety of their citizens by indulging in the insane fantasy of defunding law enforcement. We will not allow our cities to burn and violence to rule the streets, and we will not leave any doubt in the minds of those who wear the uniform that the state of Florida stands with you. To paraphrase an old Merle Haggard song, when you mess with the men and women in law enforcement, you're walking on the fighting side of me. Now, both the Speaker and the President have been leaders in supporting legislative reforms to protect Floridians from the power of big tech. Now, this is real-life 2001, not the fictitious 1984, and yet big tech wields monopolistic power over the public in ways that have made the monopolists of the early 20th century blush. Floridians have a right to control their personal data, and big tech shouldn't be able to make billions of dollars off us without our informed consent. Florida has also been a state that strongly supports free speech. We cannot allow the contours of acceptable speech to be adjudicated by the whims of oligarchs in Silicon Valley. Nor can we allow Floridians to be, quote, deplatformed or silenced with no means of recourse. And this is especially true for those who rely on these technology platforms for their livelihood. And finally, because Florida is dedicated to free and fair elections, we cannot allow big tech to interfere in our elections by putting a thumb on the scale for the political candidates favored by Silicon Valley. Pass these bills, it will make a real difference. Now, speaking of elections, we should take a moment to enjoy the fact that the state of Florida ran perhaps the most transparent and efficient election in the country in 2020. People were actually asking, why can't these other states do as well as Florida? Now, such a sentiment 20 years ago would have simply been unthinkable. So we did it right, but we need to make sure our elections are always transparent and run efficiently. There should be no ballot harvesting in the state of Florida. One person, one vote, not bring in hundreds of ballots without any supervision. We also can't allow private groups to pour millions of dollars into the administration of our elections. This is a public function and should be done without the type of private interference that we saw in other states. So let's stay ahead of the curve on election administration. We never want to see the chaos of 20 years ago rear its ugly head in the state of Florida ever again. Now, I know these issues are merely scratching the surface of what the House and Senate will tackle this session. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't lend my support to at least a couple other measures, such as the COVID liability bills for both business and health care, for the bills that we talked about with the Speaker yesterday to crack down on Chinese Communist Party influence as well as other foreign influence in the state of Florida. I also support general reforms to improve the state's legal climate. I think we should reform the emergency powers of local government. We can never let these businesses be closed down ever again. It did not work, and we've got to provide them protections in our laws. And I also support continued investment in infrastructure. It's amazing when people will come down from some of these high-tax states that have much higher tax burdens, much higher budget top-line numbers, and yet our infrastructure is better than those states. And so we know how to do it, and we need to keep doing it. The bottom line is this: we've gotten the big issues right in the state of Florida. We put our seniors first. We have our kids in school. Our economy's been saved, and we need to move forward together for the betterment of our people. Now, at the close of the Constitutional Convention, the famed elder statesman Benjamin Franklin was asked to be the first to sign the new Constitution. Franklin pointed to George Washington's chair, the back of which had the design of a sun low on the horizon. "There were days," Franklin remarked, "when I thought this picture of a sun low on the horizon was a setting sun. But I now know that it's a rising sun. A new day for America, a new day for freedom." Our nation and our state have endured a tumultuous year. Floridians have responded in ways that would make our founding fathers proud. And because of these efforts, the sun is rising here in Florida, and the Sunshine State will soon be reaching new horizons. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Farmer, the leader of the Senate Democratic Caucus. The State of the State is an annual ritual, an event in which the governor gets to present to the people of Florida his own self-graded report card. And he's obviously going to point out just the things he wants you to hear. Well, I'm here to talk about some of the things the governor may have left out of his speech and tell you about some of the things you need to hear. Getting a governor's agenda into law takes a willing partner in the state legislature. In an unprecedented time, with over 30,000 dead from the coronavirus, roughly 2 million infected, and a damaged economy still in survival mode, our Republican governor has made the dissolution of your First Amendment rights his top priority, and protecting violence inciting hate speech on the internet as his second. Despite the wide path of destruction COVID has cut in Florida and the heavy toll it took in and on Floridians' lives, the governor and Republican lawmakers have crafted legislation to muzzle our people and restrict our speech, instead of giving our health and economy the attention that they so desperately need. Can anything be more insensitive or tone deaf? Well, as it turns out, yes. Yes, there can be. Over the past 2 months, Senate and House committees have been meeting to hear legislation which will have a profound impact on Floridians' daily lives and our state as a whole. Republicans could have spent that time combating the virus that destroyed scores of small businesses and crafting bills to help those still trying to hang on. They could have laid out consumer-friendly legislation to help stem the rising power of the insurance industry over Florida's homeowners with never-ending rate hikes and dwindling coverage. Or they could have revamped a broken unemployment system that still owes benefits to some who've been out of work for nearly a year. And they could have and should have expanded Medicaid, drawing in the billions of dollars Floridians sent to Washington to pay for affordable health care, for the working poor of Florida and the thousands who lost their insurance coverage along with their jobs. But none of that happened. Instead, here's some of the legislation they're teeing up for passage and the governor's desk for signature. Anti-minimum wage, anti-health insurance coverage, anti-state pensions hitting police, firefighters, nurses, and other public workers, anti-vote by mail, and bills aimed at privatizing public schools and draining more public tax dollars for private schools that answer to no one. And bills to cut insurance coverage on home roofs just 10 years old, and protecting bad actors in the nursing home industry that failed to protect the elderly in their care, our parents and our grandparents, from coronavirus entering those facilities. The governor and his legislative allies are actually trying to convince Floridians that they're the party of the people. But their actions tell another, very different story. Their legislation does nothing for the average working person. They don't help Floridians weather the pandemic until the economy rebounds, or spur good-paying jobs. They don't put food on the table or affordable health care within reach. They don't better educate our kids or bring more accountability into the education system. And they certainly don't help build a promising future. But our Democratic legislation does. The legislation we filed fixes Florida's broken unemployment system so that Floridians never again have to face evictions or foreclosures or the endless food lines such as we witnessed this past year. Our bills expand Medicaid for working Floridians, protect our kids from lead in their drinking water, and save taxpayer money by tapping solar energy in our public schools. Our bills help vets learn new trade skills, assist Florida's unemployed in finding new jobs, and give small, local businesses a tax break. Our legislation tracks sexual assault kits and purges criminal records for minor marijuana possession. Every single one of these good bills is aimed at improving the lives of working Floridians and their families by making the playing field a little more balanced, opportunities a little more abundant, and the future a little bit brighter. Yet none of these bills is getting Republican support to push them across the finish line. The agenda that's been set by the Florida legislature differs little from this governor, who consistently puts the interest of friends and family above the interests of the people he was elected to serve. It's a one-sided, big money game of winners and losers in which the people are not invited to play. So we urge you to engage. Pay attention to the legislation as this session begins. Listen as the debates unfold, and ask yourselves how these actions will impact you and those you love. Over the next few months, there are two choices that will be made by those elected to serve you as they vote for or against a bill. One in deference to well-heeled special interests, the other to the people. You decide which choice is the right one. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Representative Bobby DuBose, the Democrat leader in the Florida House of Representatives, and I have the honor of presenting to you our response to Governor DeSantis' State of the State address. We all want what's best for Florida, but as Democrats, our vision is quite different from what you've heard from Republican leadership. The coronavirus pandemic dominated almost every aspect of our lives over the past year. With Florida having nearly 2 million diagnosed cases and over 30,000 deaths, we've never experienced anything like this before. How we respond, how we help Floridians will be the only important measure of success for this upcoming session. But how do we build Florida back stronger and better than before? I believe we can seize this opportunity for the future of our state. We can turn away from old ideas that do not work in 21st century Florida. I think it's important to focus on what the legislature can do to solve the problems we're facing. Focusing on what's impossible or what others are doing doesn't move Florida forward. The people sent us to Tallahassee to respond to this crisis, and we need to take that job very seriously. Florida cannot be a national leader and world destination if we are locked in old, outdated ways. We can change our regressive tax policies and move away from low-wage jobs. We have a new president in Congress, and as leaders, we're expected to put aside party politics to work with our federal partners to fight for Floridians. At the same time, our local governments, those closest to the people, need us to focus on state issues and not meddle in their business when they make choices for their communities. Honestly, the priorities we're seeing from our state leaders so far worry us. Instead of immediately trying to pass something that directly helps the people of Florida, we see political distractions. We're worried about House Bill 1, the governor's anti-protest bill that attacks our First Amendment rights. We're worried about efforts to make voting harder here in Florida, attacking a vote-by-mail system that until 2020 benefited Republicans. And we're confused that state leaders would focus their energy on social media companies and foreign countries while Floridians are struggling. These simply should not be a priority right now. We should not be satisfied if our COVID-19 response doesn't take steps to fix our broken unemployment system, help keep people in their homes, or make it easier for them to stay healthy. This is not a year for half measures. One problem this pandemic highlighted is that our healthcare system is fragile. Thousands lost their insurance when their jobs disappeared, leaving them vulnerable at the worst possible time. For years now, we've been asking for Florida to accept Medicaid expansion. This would provide a significant drawdown of federal money, provide health care to thousands of Floridians, and save millions in our state budget. It's a win-win-win. Rejecting this opportunity seems stubborn in the past, but it's absolutely indefensible now. House Bill 341 would finally expand Medicaid in Florida, joining the majority of states, both Republican and Democrats, who already have done so. While loss of health care has been a looming threat, the problem many Floridians struggle with daily is our inadequate unemployment assistance program. Florida offers some of the poorest help to people in need in the country. Our benefits are both meager and short, and the system to apply for them was built to intentionally frustrate Floridians struggling with an already stressful situation. We need to rethink this program immediately. The House could take up and pass a bill like House Bill 207, among other things. This would improve benefits and open them to more people, helping those in the gig economy and seasonal workers. As stressful and traumatic as this year has been for us, we don't even know the impact it has had on our kids. They have dealt with the fear and uncertainty of the virus while adjusting to learning by Zoom. Every parent will tell you it wasn't easy. Our teachers deserve our praise and support every year, but even more so now. They guide our kids through extraordinary times. While funding is important, it alone isn't enough. It's crucial we provide support like House Bill 359, which protects our students and schools from the consequences of high-stakes testing and school grading during the pandemic. As this legislature works through a tough budget year, we need to acknowledge that our schools need help too. We cannot balance a difficult budget on the backs of Florida students. They are our future workforce, our leaders, and the caretakers of Florida long after we're gone. We have an opportunity to make Florida a more equitable place for everyone by rethinking our criminal justice system. We can honor the will of the people who overwhelmingly passed Amendment 4 by considering House Bill 741 to give those convicted of felonies a clear path to having their voting rights restored. Florida deserves fair and just policing policies to ensure everyone is treated with respect and that our law enforcement officers are all considered allies to all communities. That's why the Legislative Black Caucus has highlighted over a dozen police reform measures to improve both officer and community safety in Florida. There are too many bills to name here, but one, House Bill 1451, collects many of these ideas into one piece of legislation. The 2020 election in Florida was heralded by the governor and others as the gold standard, with results counted early and smooth voting reported across the state. But Florida has joined other states attempting to make voting harder. It's tough to imagine this is anything but a reaction to so many voters choosing to vote by mail for the first time and not voting Republican. We should be doing everything in our power to make going to the polls easier. Voting by mail, early voting, and election day voting are all safe and valid ways to cast a ballot. The coronavirus pandemic has been devastating to the restaurant industry and the Florida farmers who supplied them. As our economy recovers, we need to find new markets for all the amazing food the Sunshine State produces. That's why it's more critical than ever to support and expand the Department of Agriculture's Fresh from Florida's program, making it a trusted brand recognized around the world. We are pleased that state leaders are finally moving forward to address the threat of sea level rise and climate change. But we have a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it. Business and nature demands we evolve or die. This is our chance to build the state we all need and deserve. As state leaders, we need to acknowledge that our number one priority this year is helping Floridians struggling with the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. We must do everything in our power to get our state back on track, move it forward, and make sure that no one is left behind in the recovery. We must choose what Florida we want to leave for our grandchildren, and we must fight to create it. I thank you for your time today.
You are watching the Florida Channel, a public service made possible by the Florida Legislature, WFSU TV, and Florida State University.
As lawmakers meet during the 2021 legislative session, count on Capitol Update to deliver a complete and comprehensive review live from the state capitol in Tallahassee. The experienced Capitol Update team provides daily coverage, recapping legislative committee hearings, House and Senate debate, news conferences, Florida cabinet meetings, and oral arguments from the Florida Supreme Court. Watch Capitol Update weeknights right here.
I was always kind of involved peripherally in other people's campaigns. I would do signs at night, I would help somebody with their budgeting, and then I was always the angriest guy at the homeowners association meeting, and somebody was like, well, now you should just run. And I said, I will run. The hazard in that is that you might win and then you have to serve. But it turns out I really love the policy, so I've really enjoyed serving. But that's where it came from, was I had come from a Fortune 20 company and had a very good career doing that. But was really kind of still reading the paper every day and mad about things, and eventually you gotta do something. So that's how I got involved. Was I had some friends that were in the process that said, you know, it's not that hard. You file paperwork and you start doing what you've done for other people for yourself. And so that's really where it kind of got started.
I really never really wanted to run, but I am a community advocate for over 30 years. I've been advocating on behalf of my community. I'm a 37-year business owner. So, you know, everybody goes to the business owners who they think may have some connection to people downtown. And that's how this all started. But my girlfriend, Janae Murphy, insisted that you have to run for public office. You have done everything all the politicians do, but you don't have a title. And I was like, no, I don't really think I want to do that. But she just insisted that I had to do this. And I thought, well, okay, we'll run for city council. She's like, no, you got to run for state. I'm thinking, you have lost your mind. So I have to say to you that I was very happy advocating at home on a local level, but I did realize that here in Tallahassee, I have a better, larger, louder voice to be able to help the constituents back in my district. So she pushed me along and prodded me. I lost in 16 by 100 votes, but I did not give up. I just went back to advocating and working in the community, as I'd always done. And then I ran again in 18, and I won my seat. So here I am, and I hope they'll keep me until I term out.
Senators, families, and special guests. My family is here. You have heard me speak of them. You've seen the famous Papa neckties. So this is not an introduction, but a way for me to honor them. They are the reason I am here. Kathy, thanks for putting up with me. I love you. Lauren, Kenton, Emmy, and Addie. No one could ask for a better family. I'm so proud of you all. Wilton Jr. and Caroline, I'm very excited for your wedding day in April, and I'm sure nothing will be happening up here that weekend. Just happens to be the 24th. Timmy and Bonnie Bell, you're not just friends, you're my family. Governor, I know you couldn't be here today as you're preparing for your State of the State. Your steady leadership has helped our economy recover much earlier and stronger than other states, and we all